What? And welcome to Wise Guys. These guys know sports on this Thursday, October the 7th, on the Worldwide Sports Network with your boy Trey Larkins. Everybody remember going to follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H, also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Also follow the Worldwide Sports Network on all the social media platforms. Exciting show ahead, ladies and gentlemen. I got a big time show. I'm going to talk about the Thursday night matchup here in a bit between the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams. Also, I'm going to dive into the Urban Meyer situation that's taking place right now in Jacksonville with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And also, I'm going to talk about in the show what I saw from the Monday night football game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the LA Chargers. Man, being able to see David Carr and Justin Herbert face off against each other in prime time, man, it was a sight to see. It was a game for the ages. Two of the best young quarterbacks we have in the NFL right now. I mean, it was a great matchup Monday night between the Raiders and the Chargers. I can't say enough about it. I'm going to talk about that, a little bit later on. I'm going to also talk about, the New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game from Sunday night. I still want to talk about that. I haven't had a chance to dive into that. I'm also bringing on my man, Earl Marks, CEO of the Worldwide Sports Network. So I'll bring him on the show in a bit, talk some NFL. I know you're going to want to talk about his New York Jets. Jets got their first win of the season last week against the Tennessee Titans. Zach Wilson played pretty good in that game. So I know Earl will have a lot to say about that. He's going to talk about the NFC and the AFC, both conferences with me. We're going to break down some NFL. But we begin with the Thursday night football matchup as the 3-1 LA Rams are traveling to Seattle to CenturyLink Field to take on Russell Wilson and the 2-2 Seattle Seahawks. So we know this is an NFC West battle, and the NFC West arguably is the best division in the NFL. And when you look at these two teams, when they face off against each other, last year, y'all remember, in the NFC wild card round, the LA Rams with Jared Goff, they beat the Seahawks 30-20. And the Rams, they defense got after Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson and the Seahawks offense struggled all afternoon long. It was an upset in this matchup in the playoffs last year, because Jared Goff is going up against Russell Wilson. You would think that Russell Wilson would be the favorite, but the Rams defense prevailed in that game. Aaron Donald played absolutely sensational, and the Rams, beat the Seahawks in the wild card round of the playoffs. They went on to lose to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round of the playoffs. But with Jared Goff, it was an impressive win over the Seahawks in the wild card round. But these two teams are divisional foes, very familiar with each other. And so the matchup tonight that I'm most excited to see, let's start off with the Seahawks offense versus the Rams defense. Russell Wilson versus Aaron Donald. And so Aaron Donald, he has the most wins against quarterbacks in the NFL. He has the most wins against Russell Wilson than any other quarterback with 9. He has the most sacks against Russell Wilson more than any other quarterback with 13. And he also has the most quarterback hits with 37. That's more than on any other quarterback in the NFL. And we know Russell Wilson and Aaron Donald, they face off against each other twice a season. So it's understandable why Aaron Donald has the most, he has more of his wins against Russell Wilson, more of his sacks against Russell Wilson, more of his quarterback hits against Russell Wilson than any other quarterback. But, I'm looking at this Seahawks offense going up against this Rams defense, right? I think the Rams defense was better last year than it is this season because in the offseason, the Rams defense in their secondary, they lost John Johnson and they lost Troy Hill. Troy Hill is a great slot corner who can cover receivers in the slot. They lost both of these two players to the Cleveland Browns. So John Johnson and Troy Hill signed in free agency with the Cleveland Browns. And so the opposite corner now of Jalen Ramsey is Darius Williams, and he's been getting lit up. That's where the opposing offense, that's where they're taking advantage of the Rams defense. That's the other corner, opposite side of Jalen Ramsey. That's the weakness right now in their defense. And that's why I think last year, defensively, the Rams had a much, much better defense. We all know they got two of the best, defenders in the NFL in Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald arguably is the best defensive player in the NFL. He's arguably one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history. But when you have a player like Darius Williams, he's not producing like Troy Hill or like John Johnson did in the secondary for the Rams. And that's why they got exposed last week against Kyler Murray. I mean, Kyler Murray shredded them last week in the week 2 loss. In the week 2 loss, he shredded them. Kyler Murray went 24 of 32, 268 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. AJ Green got in the mix. He had a touchdown catch from Kyler Murray. So defensively, the Rams are getting exposed because you can't have Jalen Ramsey everywhere on the field. He can't be 2 places at once. So Darius Williams, he got to step up. He got to step up for this, in a game like this, he got to step up for the Rams because more than likely, the Rams, they're going to put Jalen Ramsey on DK Metcalf. So who's going to guard Tyler Lockett? Who's going to guard Tyler Lockett? That's a mismatch. And that's something I think Russell Wilson is going to exploit in the passing game for the Seattle Seahawks. Tyler Lockett on Darius Williams, that's a mismatch. And so, Jalen Ramsey can only be one place at one time. He can't cover everywhere on the field. I mean, he's a great cornerback, arguably the best cornerback in the NFL, but he can only cover one side of the field. And we know he's going to be matched up against DK Metcalf. And so Russell Wilson on the season, he leads the NFL in pass yards per attempt with 9.6, and his passer rating is 129.9. Both lead the NFL in major statistical categories when it comes to quarterbacks. But we know the Seahawks offensive line is awful. It's awful. They gave up 3 sacks and 6 quarterback hits to the 49ers last week. So they have trouble protecting Russell Wilson. That's why you see Russell Wilson playing backyard football. Now, Russell Wilson is the best quarterback in the NFL at being able to make something out of nothing. Like when there's nothing there, Wilson can make plays, because he's a great mobile quarterback. He can make plays and make plays happen for the Seahawks offense to flourish because the offense breaks down a lot. It breaks down a lot. And so, in this matchup, I want to see if the Seahawks can protect Russell Wilson. And if they can basically expose Darius Williams, the opposite corner of Jalen Ramsey, I think that's a recipe for success for the Seahawks in their offense. Tyler Lockett, I look to him to have a big night tonight for the Seahawks in their passing game. I really, really do. I think Tyler Lockett going to play really, really well. And so, the Rams defense also, they gave up 8 yards per attempt and a rating of 120. They gave up 216 rushing yards last week to the Arizona Cardinals. 216 rushing yards. You're not going to win many football games and not going to be able to win a Super Bowl if you're giving up that many yards on the ground. So that's why I believe last year Rams had a better defense. But tonight, the key matchup is going to be Tyler Lockett versus Darius Williams. That's the key matchup. So that's what I'm looking at. Can the Seattle Seahawks protect Russell Wilson? They got to be able to protect him. They got to keep Aaron Donald off of him. If Seattle can protect Russell Wilson, and even if they can't, if he can make some plays with his legs, and we know he's more than capable of doing so, then I believe that leaves the Rams secondary to getting exposed. Not Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, he's going to hold his end of the bargain. But the opposite corner, Darius Williams, he's the one that's been getting exposed the early part of the season. Now, let's transition. Let's talk about the Seahawks defense versus the Rams offense. I got one question for the Seahawks defense. Where the hell has Jamal Adams been this season? Jamal Adams, he got 0 sacks in 4 games. And in 4 games, in 12 games last year, in 2020, he had 9.5 sacks. So far this season, he hasn't even had a sack. And in 12 games last year, he had 9.5 sacks. On the season, Adams, 22 tackles, 0 sacks, 0 fumbles forced. And y'all remember in the offseason, Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks, they signed Jamal Adams to a 4-year, $70 million extension. He became the highest paid safety in the NFL. But where has he been? Where have you been, Jamal Adams? I mean, you don't have a forced fumble this year, no sacks. You got 22 tackles on the season, but you haven't done much for this Seahawks defense to flourish. And we know in order for the Seahawks defense to flourish, they need leaders like Jamal Adams, like Bobby Wagner, to produce at a very, very high level. That's what they need. And so far in the season, they just haven't gotten it done. And so last week, after the Seahawks beat the 49ers, Jamal Adams, in the post-game press conference, he said that defensively, the Seahawks got their swagger back against Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Are you serious? Because when you look at the Seahawks defensive rankings on the season, total yards per game allowed, they've given up 444 yards per game. They're ranked dead last. And rushing yards allowed per game, they've given up 152 rushing yards per game. They're ranked dead last. They've given up 107 total first downs on the season. That also is ranked dead last in the NFL. So Jamal Adams saying they got their swagger back defensively, statistically, I beg to differ. Because every major category defensively, the Seattle Seahawks are ranked dead last. Okay, we always talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, the Green Bay Packers, teams that have to improve defensively, who have high-powered offenses and very, very elite quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Let's go ahead and add the Seattle Seahawks to that list. They are a team that has an elite quarterback, but defensively they struggle to get stops. And you can see it in the statistical categories this season. So in this game going against Matthew Stafford, although Matthew Stafford struggled last week, he struggled in the game against the Arizona Cardinals. What did Matthew Stafford go in the game? He went 26 of 41, 280 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But he was off last week. Against the Arizona Cardinals. And so he missed Deshaun Jackson on a few deep throws. You know, last week, Matthew Stafford, he only really targeted Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp had 13 targets, only 5 receptions. Only 5 receptions in week 4 for Cooper Kupp. I want to see the Rams offense distribute the football more amongst their other playmakers. You got Robert Woods. You got Higbee. You got Deshaun Jackson. You got Van Jefferson. Can someone else in the offense step up for Matthew Stafford and produce? That's what the Rams are going to need if they're going to go on a deep playoff run. You can't just rely on Cooper Kupp to rely on in the passing game. Just like the Packers, they can't just rely on Devontae Adams. Although Devontae Adams is big time and he's the best receiver in the NFL and he can handle the responsibilities of being reliable in the passing game for Aaron Rodgers, you want to have someone else step up, in these key games. That way you can know, okay, I know Robert Woods, I know Van Jefferson will step up at a key moment, in a playoff game. You can't just rely on Cooper Kupp. And that's what Matthew Stafford did in week 4. And that's ultimately why they lost and why their offense struggled. But defensively for the Seahawks, can they get a pass rush? Poona Ford, Carlos Dunlap, okay, Rasheem Green, Al Woods. Can y'all produce some type of pass rush so you can take some pressure off your secondary and players like Jamal Adams? Because your secondary isn't very good. Seahawks defensive coordinator Ken Norton and Pete Carroll, they got some work to do. They got some work to do with this defense. You would think a team being led by Pete Carroll would be much better defensively, much better. But they've been one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And they struggled against the run. I don't expect the Rams to run the ball very much tonight. I think they're going to air it out with Matthew Stafford. And so if the Seahawks can generate a pass rush, they'll have a chance to win this game. They'll have a chance. But that's been their biggest issue so far this season. They don't know how to generate a pass rush. And so they have more pressure on their secondary. And they're not playing well. They're not playing well right now. Like I said, you got Jamal Adams in the back end. You got who do you got? You got DJ Reed. I mean, these guys, they just not playing good football right now. I mean, they just not. They got to play much better football. Darryl Taylor. I mean, they just not playing good football. And if they want to have a chance to be able to slow down this high-powered Rams offense, you got to generate some pressure with your front four. Carlos Dunlap, Al Woods, Rasheem Green, Poona Ford, got to be able to generate a pass rush and slow down Matthew Stafford in the passing game. Because we know the Rams are going to throw the ball. They're going to throw the ball around the field. They're not going to run the football very much in this game. So that's what I'm looking for on that side of the ball. I want to see the chess match between Sean McVay and defensive coordinator Ken Norton of the Seahawks. I want to see what happens. And like I said, I'm calling out Jamal Adams. Jamal, I need more production from you, bro. I need more production from you. 4-year, $70 million extension in the offseason that you signed. You're the highest paid safety in the NFL. You got to have more than just 22 tackles on the season. I need you to be forcing some fumbles. I need you to have at least 2 or 3 sacks at this point in the season, but you haven't played very well. You haven't played very well, Jamal. And so that's a part of the reason why the Seahawks defense has struggled. That's why they have struggled. In this game, although neither team really runs the football very well, I want to see which team can establish the run. Because if the Rams can establish the run with Sony Michel and they can slow down that pass rush, let's just say the Seahawks have a pass rush tonight and they're able to generate pressure on Matthew Stafford. If the Rams can run the football with Sony Michel, that slows down a great pass rush. It slows them down. So that's what I'm looking for tonight. I want to see if Matthew Stafford can bounce back. Primetime matchup again for Matthew Stafford. He played well in week 3 going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. That was a primetime game, out there in LA at SoFi Stadium. Everyone was in attendance out there at the game. You had LeBron in the house. You had Magic Johnson in the house, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Miles Bridges. I mean, you name it. Everybody was out there. You name the star in LA at the time. Everybody was at that game in week 3 when the Rams faced off against the Bucs. And Matthew Stafford played pretty well in that game in primetime. Although early in that game, he missed some throws to D-Jack on some deep vertical routes that Deshaun Jackson was wide open. He missed some throws there in the early part of that game. But as the game went along, Matthew Stafford got into a rhythm, and the Rams took off on the Bucks in that week 3 game. I want to see how Matthew Stafford performs in prime time tonight in Seattle. We know in the postseason, in primetime action, Matthew Stafford's 0-3. He's 0-3 in the playoffs. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he hasn't played very well in primetime action. I want to see what Matthew Stafford has in store for us tonight, because he's going to have to start winning primetime games if the Rams want to be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Because once you get to the playoffs, none of this matters what you do in the regular season. None of it matters. But you can prepare for a playoff moment, in these regular season primetime matchups going up against elite quarterbacks like Russell Wilson. Nothing's like the playoffs, but you can be prepared a little bit when all the pressure is on you in this particular game. So I want to see what Matthew Stafford has. I want to see what he got, because the Rams are favored to win this game, and they're favored to, compete in the NFC. They're one of the favorites in the NFC, along with the Bucks, along with the Cardinals, along with the Packers. The Rams are in that conversation as well. So I want to see Matthew Stafford perform well in prime time, and I also want to see him distribute the football much better. So let's transition and let's talk about the situation involving Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars. As Jaguars head coach Urban Meyer, he apologized to his team and family over the video that was all over the internet, where it showed a young woman dancing close to his lap at a Columbus bar. This was Urban Meyer to the media talking about the situation. He said, quote, "A coach should not be a distraction." That was Urban Meyer talking to reporters on the situation involving himself, that took place in Columbus. And let me read the quote and the statement from Jaguars owner Shaquan. This is Shaquan on the situation involving Urban Meyer. Quan, quote, "I have addressed this matter with Urban. Specifics of our conversation will be held in confidence. What I will say is his conduct last weekend was inexcusable. I appreciate Urban's remorse, which I believe is sincere. Now he must regain our trust and respect. That will require a personal commitment from Urban to everyone who supports, represents, or plays for our team. I am confident he will deliver." That was the statement from Jaguars owner Shad Khan on the situation involving Urban Meyer right now in Jacksonville. So the question is, what is my reaction to the situation involving Urban Meyer? First and foremost, listening to Khan's statement talking about Urban Meyer has to regain their trust made no sense to me. When it comes to the video, Urban Meyer only has to regain the trust of one person, depending on what kind of relationship they have. And that's Shelly Meyer, not the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't understand what Khan was talking about, saying that he has to regain the trust of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That made no sense. That's pertaining to the video. The video that we saw that surfaced the internet all over social media. Urban Meyer doesn't have to regain the trust of the Jacksonville Jaguars when it comes to that video. He has to regain the trust of his wife or whatever situation they have going on in their marriage. That's between them. And Urban Meyer didn't do anything illegal. If he would have done something illegal, then I would understand why Khan and the Jacksonville Jaguars would feel like he has to regain their trust. If he did something illegal, then you have to regain the trust of the organization that pays you. But that wasn't the case here. And so basically, my man, Emmanuel Acho of Speak for Yourself on FS1, he tweeted the other day, and I believe it was 100% accurate. We've gotten too comfortable condemning people who get caught in public doing what we do in private. We tend to think because we haven't gotten caught doing something that the action isn't as bad as the one who got caught. In other words, what Urban Meyer was doing with that girl at the bar in Columbus, That was something that people do privately all the time. He just got caught publicly doing it. And so now everyone wants to condemn Urban Meyer for those actions. But in reality, people do stuff like this all the time. Now, whether or not you think that Urban Meyer, was wrong or, morally is a different conversation because everybody has their own opinions about if he was wrong or not, or whatever kind of relationship that he has with Shelly Meyer. Okay. But we got to stop condemning people for getting caught publicly when we do stuff privately all the time. You not know better than anyone else if you condemning someone for getting caught publicly when you doing it privately. You just ain't got caught yet. That don't make what you doing any better than the person who got caught publicly. Just because you do it privately don't make it any better at all. And so that's one thing I want to say. So in my mind, Urban Meyer did nothing wrong illegally at all. This was not an illegal action whatsoever. But here is where Urban Meyer went wrong. And this is what he has to understand. He has to understand he's not at Ohio State anymore. He's leading a group of grown men, some who make more money than even him. They got mortgages to pay. They have kids, college tuition to pay. He isn't a college coach anymore leading young adults. He's leading grown men. And the biggest mistake that Urban Meyer made in this situation was the fact that his team is currently 0-4. That was the biggest mistake. If the Jacksonville Jaguars had found a way to beat the Bengals last Thursday night at Paul Brown Stadium, and let's just say they improved to 4-0 on the season, folks, do you really believe that this story would still be going on? Do you really believe that this would have gotten blown out of proportion the way that it has? I don't. If the Jaguars were 4-0 or even 3-1, I don't believe this story would have gotten blown out of proportion the way that it has, especially when it comes to the players. When it comes to the players, if they were 4-0 or 3-1, I don't even believe they would have an issue with the video that was all over social media throughout the week. I don't, because they would know our coach is putting us in the best position to be successful. Our record speaks for itself. We're overachieving because we're 3-1 or possibly 4-0 with a rookie quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. So I don't think players would have an issue with Urban Meyer if they had a better regular season record at this moment in the season. That's my opinion. I don't think their beef would be as big with Urban Meyer as it is, being 0-4. And so also where Urban Meyer went wrong, why would you cancel practice once the video surfaced the internet? Once it became, public information, and once we saw the video surface the internet earlier in the week, there are reports about how Urban Meyer canceled practice on Monday or Tuesday. Why would you cancel practice when your team is 0-4, Urban? That's where you went wrong. If you have a personal issue that you have going on outside of football, you deal with that outside of football when you have the time to deal with that situation. You don't deal with it when you're trying to improve your team and not lose a 20th straight game. Let me say that again. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they've lost 19 straight games dating back to last season when they won in week 1 of last year. They haven't won a game since. They are about to be on a 20-game losing streak if they lose to the Tennessee Titans this Sunday. So, Urban Meyer, you can't cancel practice because you got some personal issues going on outside of football. Your team has to improve so Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars can get their first win of the season. So the optics look bad no matter how you look at this situation. But it looks even worse when you are 0-4 on the season. Although the first 15 ain't got nothing to do with Urban Meyer. The first 15 have nothing to do with Urban Meyer. But these last 4, you want to see your head coach be in grind mode and try to put together a game plan that Trevor Lawrence can go out there and execute, and the defense can go out there and execute, and can put them in a better position to come away with their first win. They played well against the Cincinnati Bengals last week in week 4, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And so here, Urban Meyer went wrong because it wasn't the fact that he didn't fly back with the team to Jacksonville. It was a bad look because of what happened while he was at the Columbus bar in Ohio. And it was on video. Had he never got caught on video, then the situation would have never blew up the way that it did. And so because he got caught on camera, like now everyone knew what was going on. But it would have never even happened had he not got caught on camera. No one would ever found out about this situation. No one. So, that was the worst part about the situation, was the fact that he, was caught on camera. Had he not got caught on camera, then, it wouldn't have looked as bad. It wouldn't have looked as bad. So, him canceling practice, being 0-4 on the season, those are the issues that I believe the players have with Urban Meyer. It's not about the actual action itself, because there have been way worse things that have happened on a football team, whether it be by a coach, whether it be by a general manager, or whether it be by a player. There's been way worse things that players, coaches, and general managers have done on teams. I think players got more of an issue with it because they're 0-4 in the season. So, I know players probably had an issue with the fact that he didn't fly back with the team, but once the video came out, that just made it even worse. So, Urban Meyer, I don't think this is a fireable offense. I think Khan is going to support Urban Meyer, and I think he's going to do the best that he can to try to, right his wrongs and get the Jaguars, a win this season so they don't, go 0-17. That's what they don't want to happen. They don't want to go 0-17 on the season. You got a new rookie quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and so you want Trevor Lawrence to gain some confidence as the season goes along. That way, Khan can see that Urban Meyer is leading this team in the right direction. And he has the right coach in place that can lead Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars at being a franchise that can, turn around and be a true contender. So those are my takeaways from this situation involving Urban Meyer. Again, I think it got blown out of proportion because of the Jaguars being 0-4 more so than anything. I mean, what on the video itself and what was going on with Urban Meyer and the girl that was grinding on him, that's between Urban Meyer and Shelly Meyer. That ain't got nothing to do with the rest of us. Nothing to do with the rest of us. But let's transition. And I want to bring on CEO of the Worldwide Sports Network, my man, Earl Marks. Earl, what's up?
Can you hear me, Earl?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Earl, what's going on?
It's just getting better from COVID and all the other stuff, surgery, hip surgery, but I'm here.
Man, this is the CEO of the Worldwide Sports Network, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome him to the Wise Guys Sports Show. So, Earl, let's get right to it, man. Let's talk some NFL. I want to first talk about the Thursday night matchup that we got tonight between the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. We got the Rams 3-1 traveling to Seattle. Seattle's 2-2 on the season. They got a win over the 49ers last week. So what's your expectations for this matchup tonight, Earl?
I think this is going to be a really, really good game. We talk about Seattle and Seattle over the last couple of games haven't looked at the top of their game. Now, obviously, they have no running game, and with Seattle over the years, their strength was open up with the running game and then use the outside power throwing ability of Russell Wilson. I think that when you go into this game, and obviously it's in Seattle, Seattle will have the advantage with the home field advantage that it is. Yeah. You talk about what Seattle can do in the open field and how Russell Wilson can take over a game. You have DK Metcalf and obviously Lockett. Lockett who is also coming off a significant injury, and it hasn't been 100% the last couple of weeks. He didn't look good last week, but I think when you look at Seattle, this is an important game for Seattle, even though the Rams lost last week to a very good and talented team as well. So I think when you look at the Rams and you look at Matthew Stafford and you look at obviously Aaron Donald, who's been dominant, he's been dominant in the beginning of the season. He'll finish strong if he stays healthy. And obviously Ramsey, they have the ability to keep in games because of their defensive style of game, and they'll be able to run the ball and they'll be able to throw the ball. I think this is a great, probably the best Thursday night football game of the year so far. And I think obviously a lot of people would pick Seattle, but I think this is a very important game for the Rams as well. I think the Rams are going to win the game. Matthew Stafford has looked fantastic since he's taken over as the quarterback of this team. He's really transitioned this team and changed this team for the better.
I want to talk about the Seahawks defense real quick, Earl. And so last week, after beating the San Francisco 49ers, Jamal Adams, he said that they got their swagger back. And so I disagree with Jamal Adams about that because statistically, the Seahawks defense, they're ranked dead last in some major categories. Total yards per game, they're ranked dead last. Rushing yards per game allowed, they're ranked dead last. And first downs given up, they're ranked dead last. So I want to get your opinion about the Seahawks defense. How important do you believe it is for the Seahawks defense to be able to apply some pressure on Matthew Stafford tonight?
Let's be honest. The Seattle defense isn't the Legion of Boom anymore. This isn't a great defense anymore. This is more of an offensive style of game. They're going to use their ability with DK Metcalf and Lockett. They're going to try to throw the ball down the field and dominate the game in the open field, slant passing and stuff like that. I know Wagner has been a dominant force as a linebacker in this league for a very, very long time. Losing Wright, walking away from Wright in the offseason. This isn't the same dominant defense. And we all know what Jamal Adams likes to do. He likes to open his mouth. He likes to talk. And I know that because I'm a Jet fan and I know what he's all about. I just don't look at Seattle as a defensive-minded team anymore. I think they're more of an offensive-minded team. It's on Russell Wilson's arm and his ability to move inside and out of the pocket. So what do I think about the defense? Their defense stinks. This is one of the worst defenses in all of football. You're talking about, I think they're ranked in almost every single, like you were saying, every single statistic in under 20, either in 25, ranked 25th, 26th, or 27th in all of football. They're not a good defense.
Not at all. And I called out Jamal Adams a little bit on the show a while ago, Earl, because I said, he got a 4-year, $70 million extension in the offseason, became the highest paid safety in the NFL. And on the season, though, Earl, he only has 22 tackles. He doesn't have a sack on the season, no forced fumbles on the season. And in order for the Seahawks, defense to produce at any kind of high level, they need Jamal Adams to play like he's, the best safety in the NFL, and also Bobby Wagner, being the leader of the defense. So far in the season, I haven't been very impressed with Jamal Adams.
He's an overpaid safety. And I've been always saying that. I don't think he's the best safety in football. I don't even think he's a top 5 safety in football. So I think Jamal Adams, he got overpaid in the offseason. He wanted that money. The Jets weren't going to give it to him. That's why the Jets traded him. And I think, obviously, and anybody that doesn't believe that Joe Douglas practically stole 2 first-round draft picks and a third-round draft pick from Seattle, I just think actually, it was 2 first-round draft picks and a player. I think that when you look at the big picture, I don't think Jamal Adams is as dominant as he thinks he is.
Yeah, one more thing before we transition to some more NFL about this game, Earl. I'm looking at, again, the Seahawks offense going up against the Rams defense. And so defensively for the Rams, in the offseason, they lost Troy Hill to free agency to the Browns. They lost John Johnson in free agency to the Browns as well. And so you got Jalen Ramsey on one side of the field, but Jalen Ramsey can't be 2 places at once. So you got Darius Williams, the opposite corner, of Jalen Ramsey. And I feel like he's been kind of getting exposed, the first, 4 games of the season. Last week, Kyler Murray, he had 268 pass yards, 2 touchdowns. AJ Green got into the action for the Arizona Cardinals and their win over the Rams. So what do you think about the Rams, secondary, now that they lost Johnson and Hill, in the offseason?
I think the Rams are not a secondary team. I think they're a front seven team. They like to get at the quarterback. They can get to the quarterback. They're a dominant force with Aaron Donald in there. Now, Ramsey is a dominant force. We all know what he is. We all know what he's capable of being and what he's capable of doing on the field. With obviously the offseason and losing some pieces, they're not the dominant force they were last year defensively. They're to me, I still think they're a top 12, top 13 defense. They can get at you. I think they're, what are they, fourth in the NFL or fifth in the NFL in sacks. They're a team that can get to the quarterback. That's where their strength is. Their strength lies in their front seven, not their secondary. So last year, their secondary was very strong. This year, I think their secondary is ranked 19th or 20th in the league. You see the difference of what they are and when you're missing pieces and that secondary. So what do I think about their defense? I think they're a front seven team. They're going to, if they can get pressure on the quarterback, they're going to win and they're going to dominate. If they can't get pressure on the quarterback, aka Kyler Murray, small, great young quarterback that can move inside and out of the pocket, very hard to stop. You saw what Arizona exposed them in the open field, because when you have a guy that can throw the ball and move inside and out of the pocket and make the front seven run after him, he's going to expose that secondary.
Absolutely, man. And one of the keys I'm looking for too, also, one of my key matchups is going to be Tyler Lockett going up against Darius Williams in this game, the cornerback, opposite side of Jalen Ramsey. So that's another matchup I'm looking forward to seeing tonight as well, Earl. But let's transition, Earl. Let's talk about your New York Jets. I know you're a big-time Jets fan. The Jets,
that's not saying much.
They got their first win of the season Sunday afternoon against the Tennessee Titans. They improved to 1-3 on the season. But I want to talk about your rookie quarterback and Zach Wilson. You know, Zach Wilson on the season, he got 4 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, completing about 57% of his passes. You know, what do you make of Zach Wilson's performance the first 4 games of the season so far as a Jets fan?
Well, I could look at the rookie offensive coordinator and Mike LaFleur, who I think is absolutely horrific. We had a very good guest last night, SB Nation, Jack Hawthorne, who came on the show yesterday and actually gave us some good information about what he thinks about the New York Jets and the growth of Zach Wilson. I think when you look at Zach Wilson, I didn't expect Zach Wilson this year to be the dominant force like a lot of people thought he was going to be. He's a rookie quarterback. He's going to make mistakes. If you look at all the rookie quarterbacks this year, from obviously Trevor Lawrence to Justin Fields to even obviously Mac Jones. Mac Jones, he's more of a transitional quarterback that fits a system. When you look at Zach Wilson has the ability to move inside and out of the pocket and make throws off his back foot. Over the last couple of weeks, the Jets have been the league worst at winning when it comes to the offensive line and getting sacked. And Zach Wilson, who is not as big as a lot of these quarterbacks. I know a lot of people say he's 6'2", 6'2.5", but he's not a big guy. He's 205 pounds, 210 pounds. He's going to get killed at the line of scrimmage. And the Jets have not protected him. This offensive line that was reconstructed by Joe Douglas in the offseason, adding Elijah Vera Tucker. We thought Mekhi Becton was going to be 100% healthy all season long. He can't stay on the field. You bring in guys like Morgan Moses and players like that and all these veterans that they brought in, they can't protect him. And I think that's been a big problem of his growth. What we saw last week against Tennessee was Zach Wilson audibling, pushing the ball down the field. And that's where his strength's at. And that's where we're going to see a difference in a quarterback play for the New York Jets. When we talk about Aaron Rodgers, when we talk about guys like Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, guys that can transition and move out of the pocket and make throws that you've never seen before, you don't see a lot. I think Zach Wilson's that type of quarterback. It's going to take a little while for him to understand the game and the speed of the game. And you see the difference when he can take over a game and audible plays and tell Corey Davis to go down the field and make plays in the open field. I think that this is where this kid is going to really develop as a good quarterback in the league. What I've seen so far is they're not protecting him and they're not putting him in the right position to obviously succeed. And that's why if you look at his numbers, and I expected this early in the season, I think he's going to get better as the season progresses. And you're going to see a lot of development of what this kid can do in the open field when this team gets healthy and this offensive line actually protects him.
I agree completely, Earl. And so, like, for me, even when I look at the AFC East, right, I'm going to compare right now. I'm going to compare Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. To
Mhm.
me, Mac Jones, he needs a system to be successful. Like, he has to have the right game plan and system around him and have the coach put him in a good position to be successful. When I look at Zach Wilson, man, like I said, I know he got 8 interceptions on the season, but I believe he's one of those quarterbacks that can make something out of nothing. And he's just more talented all around than Mac Jones is. Like, I know Mac Jones played pretty good the other night, in the Sunday night matchup against the Bucs. I think he had like 15 straight completions or something like that. But I think Zach Wilson, man, he has a higher ceiling,
Of course,
than Mac Jones overall. You agree with that too?
Absolutely. I think what Zach Wilson can do is he can make something out of nothing. And when you see quarterbacks, I just mentioned Aaron Rodgers has lived in the NFL. And just remember, all the fans, and I know a lot of people think that I'm an Aaron Rodgers lover, but if you look at Tom Brady, you look at Peyton Manning, and you look at all these other quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers has only thrown 91 interceptions in his career, and he's thrown over 400 touchdowns. When you look at the numbers and the transition of what he has done in this league, his game strictly is move outside of the pocket, use his legs, and throw impossible passes out in the open field. The same thing when you look at Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is very much compared to Aaron Rodgers and what Aaron Rodgers can do. Russell Wilson is feasted in the game and his career so far in the NFL, being that he's been in the league over 10 years, on the way he moves inside and out of the pocket and makes impossible throws in the open field. I think Zach Wilson is that type of quarterback. I think as he grows in the NFL and he figures things out and he understands how to read defenses, I think he's going to be very hard to stop because of his ability to move inside and out of the pocket and make throws that are very impossible to make.
Completely agree with you, Aaron, on that. I completely agree with you. And when we look back on these rookie quarterbacks, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields.
Trey Lance is a bust, and I'm going to tell you that right now. I think he's going to be a bust. I really do.
We'll see. But 20 years from now, in this draft class, you can make a legitimate argument that Zach Wilson could be the best quarterback from this draft. I think Justin Fields is going to be good too, though.
Trevor Lawrence is going to be fun too. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be good too.
Trevor Lawrence too.
It's not going to be with Urban Meyer, that's for sure.
But I'm actually high on Justin Fields as well. How you feel about Justin Fields?
I love Justin Fields and what he can do with his legs. Being that he's 230 pounds, he's as fast as a guy like Lamar Jackson. He's got a more accurate arm. And when Justin Fields figures things out, and I don't like Chicago's coach, and I think he'll be fired at the end of the year. But Justin Fields, his ability to move inside and out of the pocket. He's a very fast quarterback, very hard to take down. And we've seen what he can do in big games. We saw what he could do against Clemson. We've seen what he did when he was playing for Ohio State. So I think when you talk about the ability that this kid could be and what he can capably do, remember, Chicago's 2-2. And Chicago's this year, Chicago has not looked any good. Their defense, where everybody thought was going to dominate, hasn't been the dominant force we thought they were going to be. But they're still capable of making the playoffs. And with a young quarterback like Justin Fields, he's going to be the full-time quarterback for the rest of the year. I think him too is going to figure things out, and I think he's going to be even more interesting to watch as the season progresses and he plays better and more talented defenses.
I agree with you completely. Let's transition. Let's talk about the competition right now in the NFC. So coming into the season, Earl, when it comes to true contenders, we talked about the Packers. They've been to back-to-back NFC championship games. We talked about the LA Rams because they brought in Matthew Stafford via trade. We talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defending Super Bowl champions. But right now, it's the Arizona Cardinals that's sitting at 4-0 on the season, Earl. And, they had an impressive week 1 win over the Tennessee Titans. And in week 4, on Sunday, they beat Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams. Do you believe that Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals are legitimate Super Bowl contenders in the NFC?
Kyler Murray has been my favorite player since he's come into the league. I think he's a fantastic quarterback that can make every single throw, hard to take down and hard to stop because you can't see him over those big offensive linemen. He's fun to watch with the Hopkins. Hopkins hasn't really even exploded yet this year. AJ Green hasn't really exploded yet. You've been seeing Kirk, and you've been seeing all these other guys that they drafted over the last couple of years. So their top end wide receivers haven't really exploded. Once they figure and exploit some of these defenses in the NFL, they're going to be even more fun to watch. And that defense with J.J. Watt and obviously Chandler Jones, this team is fun to watch. They're exciting. I'm not a big Kingsbury fan, but I think take Kyler Murray and what he's capable of being and how he dominates in the field, and he changes the game with his legs, and that's what makes him so fun to watch. And he's an accurate thrower. All these Oklahoma quarterbacks that have come out, even Jalen Hurts has looked very accurate this year with the Philadelphia Eagles. When you look at, obviously, Lincoln Riley and what he's capable of doing with these quarterbacks, he has developed quarterbacks and really talented quarterbacks that have been successful in the NFL. So I think they're for real. I think they're a great young defense, and they're going to be even better. I think this is one of the best teams in the NFC.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I still think, everyone's talking about the defending champs in Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're a team to be reckoned with. Again, the LA Rams
got a lot of weaknesses on their defense, and you see that.
Sure. And they got a lot of injuries too in their secondary as well. Mm-hmm. And you look at the LA Rams, you got Matthew Stafford, but Matthew Stafford hasn't performed, at a high level so far in the postseason in his career. And I still think, I'm gonna be honest with you, Earl, like as a Packers fan, I love the fact that the Packers right now are kind of flying under the radar and a sleeper in the NFC. Like everybody's talking about the Arizona Cardinals, the LA Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody's forgetting about Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, who've been to back-to-back NFC championship games. So I like the fact that my Packers are flying under the radar a little bit, Earl. And I'm excited this weekend because they're going to be here in Cincinnati. So I get to see them take on the Bengals, at Paul Brown Stadium. What you think about the Packers?
I love the Packers. I picked the Packers to go to the Super Bowl this year. I think Aaron Rodgers, and this might be the last year that Aaron Rodgers is going to be here with the Packers. I really believe he's going to move on from the Packers after this year, but this is his opportunity to really give the Packers another Super Bowl. But before he decides to move on from this organization, he's not a big fan of the president. He's not a very big fan of the GM of the organization. But this team, and this might be the last year Davante Adams stays here, because Davante Adams might be moving on as well. So when you
don't say that, Earl.
I know you don't want to jump off the bridge, but
Aaron and Davante both gonna retire Packers, man. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Maybe Davante. I can't see Aaron Rodgers staying with everything that's happened over the last couple of years and this organization not giving him the opportunity to make the most money at the position that he is. He's the best quarterback by far in all of football. I don't care what anybody says, as good as Tom Brady is. And Tom Brady has been a sensational quarterback, and he's won all these Super Bowls, and he's been a dominant force. If you look at his numbers and compare it to Aaron Rodgers, when Aaron Rodgers is on the field, there's nobody better. And I tell everybody on obviously the Sports Loudmans and the Weekend Crunch on 103.9. I say this all the time. What makes Aaron Rodgers so special is look at the wide. Besides Davante Adams, could you name another wide receiver that's in the top 100 in all of the NFL? He doesn't have anybody. No. So when you look at what he can do with people that you never even heard of, or people that aren't even as dominant, if you put him on Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now with Godwin and obviously the players and the weapons that they have, he's right now he has 25 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and he's a dominant force. That's why I think when Aaron Rodgers and what he's capable of doing, he can make something out of nothing. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers over the last 10 years, tell me, when you look at the Green Bay Packers and their defense has been amongst the worst in the NFL. And he is taking these teams all the way to NFC title games and Super Bowls. I mean, he only has one Super Bowl. He should have more, but it's not Aaron Rodgers' fault. It's because I don't believe the Green Bay Packers give him enough weapons and give him enough defense to help him win a Super Bowl. So Aaron Rodgers should have 3 Super Bowls, maybe even 4, because of his talent and his inability. I just feel bad because they don't put the players around him. A lot of people don't like him because he's cocky and he talks the way he talks, but that's what makes Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers. And cockiness, I don't care what anybody says. The best quarterbacks of all time have all been cocky. Joe Montana, cocky. Joe Namath, cocky. You name them. Every single top end quarterback, even Peyton Manning. If you're going to tell me Peyton Manning wasn't cocky, then you don't know football. So all the greats were cocky, and that's where they've become successful. And where do you think he learned it? Brett Favre was one of the cockiest players in NFL history.
Yeah, for sure. 2 more questions for you, Earl, before you get out of here. I know you got to do your show tonight at 9:00. So Monday night, man, I was enamored watching the Monday night matchup between the Vegas Raiders and the LA Chargers. So watching, Derek Carr and Justin Herbert, face off against each other at SoFi Stadium, it was exciting to watch. And, they both improved to 3-1 on the season. The Cleveland Browns right now, they're 3-1 on the season. Kansas City Chiefs, they're 2-2. Who are your favorites right now in the AFC?
Well, everybody knows how much I love Justin Herbert. And I think Justin Herbert really is going to transition the game. He's the next superstar in this league. And I'm going to tell you this. He beat Patrick Mahomes. He's a better all-around quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. I know a lot of people like Patrick Mahomes and what he can do and his capability with his legs and throwing with his left hand, and he can do all these fancy and fantastic things. Patrick Mahomes has, you can see, this team has some deficiencies defensively and offensively. Tyreek Hill hasn't been the dominant force he once was. What I've seen with Justin Herbert is with Staley taking over as the coach of the team, he has put more trust in what Justin Herbert can do and what he sees in the open field, the weapons that they have, and with Williams and Cook and obviously their running game, they're capable with Eckler being healthy this year. Justin Herbert has been absolutely fantastic. Derek Carr, to me, going into that game was the MVP. He was the leading vote getter in my eyes as the MVP of the league. He did not look good against a very good defense in the Chargers. The Chargers, if they play the way they are right now, the Chargers can absolutely win that division. That division is one of the best divisions in football. Who would have thought that with the obviously the Las Vegas Raiders, with the Kansas City Chiefs, and now the Chargers. And the Broncos too. Yeah, and the Broncos too, who's a very and by the way, Teddy Bridgewater, say whatever you want about him. Is he a dominant quarterback in this league? No, but he can make every single throw and he can win. And with that defense, if they can stay healthy and when Chubb comes back, they're going to be a dominant force. Von Miller is still a dominant force. That defense is still a dominant force. So it's going to be open. I think with the AFC, everybody thought the AFC East was going to be fun to watch with Miami. Tua is an absolute horrific quarterback. Obviously, I don't think the Jets are still a year or 2 years away to be even a decent top end team that can make the playoffs year in and year out. Patriots overspent in the offseason, and really some of the players that they brought in besides Matthew Judon has really not panned out. And obviously the Buffalo Bills, who I think is one of the most overrated teams in all of the NFL. They've beaten nobody. They won 40-0 last week against a Texan team that's absolutely So
we'll see what they made of in week 5 though, Earl, because they play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So we'll see.
Both teams are highly overrated. I think Kansas City is not going to the Super Bowl. I don't think Buffalo is going to the Super Bowl. I think there's going to be a team in the AFC that we least expect. And by the way, Lamar Jackson, anybody that thinks Lamar Jackson can't play anymore, please shut up.
Oh, absolutely. Because right now you can make an argument he could be the MVP, Earl.
Absolutely.
Given all the injuries that took place, in training camp with the Baltimore Ravens, you can make a legitimate case for Lamar Jackson being the NFL MVP. So I completely agree with you on that. I got one more question for you, Earl. 2 minutes. Let's talk about the Urban Meyer situation right now in Jacksonville. We know that there was a video that surfaced the internet with a young woman dancing on Urban Meyer at a Columbus bar. So what's your reaction to the situation right now involving Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars? How do you feel about the overall situation as a whole?
Is anybody surprised Urban Meyer is the center of attention of the Jacksonville Jaguars right now? Nobody. I mean, honestly, Urban Meyer, we all knew when he took the job, he was going to be the face of that organization. And if he eats, craps, or even sits on a toilet bowl and is dancing in any kind of way by himself or with a woman, it's going to reach and the press is going to attack it. Now, Urban Meyer, first of all, this has something to do with him and his wife. This really has nothing to do with the press and us even talking about it. His wife needs to decide what she needs to do with him. Obviously, he's a cheater. And I'm not surprised. Coaches have cheated. We've seen obviously players cheat over the years, and we've seen, and it's nothing crazy that we've not heard before. But the embarrassment of going out there and listen, I think the owner of Jacksonville, Khan, did the right thing. He reprimanded Urban Meyer. He reprimanded him in front of the press. But again, it's not going to change what has happened. Urban Meyer made a mistake, and people make mistakes. And Urban Meyer was in his own bar when he did it. So I think Urban Meyer knew what he was doing. I think the fact that some young 20-something-year-old girl is dancing on his lap, that has something to do with him and his wife. So to me, I don't really care. I really don't care. It doesn't really affect me. It doesn't, like you were saying just a little while ago, what affected the team is him canceling practice. That's what affected the team. Anything else with this, who cares if Urban Meyer's dancing with a girl? I don't care if he was dancing with a bunch of triplets. It doesn't really matter to me.
That's what I said earlier. And my biggest takeaway from the whole situation was, like when Khan said that he has to regain our trust. What trust? I feel like the trust that he has to regain, the person he has to regain their trust is Shelly Meyer. That has nothing to do with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mm-hmm. Where he went wrong was the fact that Jacksonville right now, they 0-4 in the season. Mm-hmm. They are facing, a legitimate shot at being on a 20-game losing streak. Yeah. So I think his players, given the fact that he didn't fly back with the team, and the fact that this video, surfaced social media and came out, that's what looked worse. Because had the video not came out, we would have never even knew about Urban Meyer being at his bar in Columbus. So I think the worst part about it was him canceling practice and the fact that the video came out. Because again, no one really cares what you're not doing until you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So that was the biggest issue that I had. Like, I think if they were 4-0, I don't think this story would have blown out of proportion.
If they won 2 games, if they won 1 or 2 games, this wouldn't have blown out of proportion. Exactly. The fact that it's Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer, he's a rookie coach in the NFL, and he was highly profiled. Everybody loved this signing. I didn't like it. And remember, we've seen college coaches come into the NFL and absolutely fail. And Nick Saban being another one who was here for a year and a half with Miami, and he gets fired. So a lot of these prestige coaches that come out of the NFL, NCAA, and dominate college football, they don't succeed in the NFL. It's a different game. Jim Harbaugh, look what he did. He went to Michigan. He is a great NFL coach, but as a college coach, he really hasn't been proven to be a good college coach. It's a different game. And speed and understanding coaching men and running men and teaching men to teaching kids and kids following your lead. So I think Urban Meyer, who has a very young team, I think he needs to concentrate on getting his young quarterback to understand the game and the speed of the game, so his quarterback could start doing the things that we expect him to do, and that's dominate, because I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a fantastic quarterback.
He is Earl Marks of the Worldwide Sports Network, the CEO of the Worldwide Sports Network on the Wise Guys Sports Show. Earl, thanks for coming on, bro. I'm definitely going to bring you back on, man. Like, I love talking football with you.
Absolutely. Anytime you want, Trey. Thank you for letting me join you. Listen to the Sports Loudmouths tonight. It's going to be a great show. We have 2 fantastic guests, and I think Tyler's return. There's going to be a lot of crazy yelling and craziness that's going to be on the show tonight, so stay tuned for that.
You got to bring me on your show too, Earl, for sure. I'm going to come on with
you. Absolutely. Anytime you want, if you want to come on tonight, you're more than welcome to come on at 11 o'clock.
Okay. All right. I'm definitely going to tune in. So everybody tune in to Earl's show tonight. Thanks for coming on, Earl.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite. I'm sorry, invite. Later, guys.
No problem. That was Earl Marks, CEO of the Worldwide Sports Network. So I'm going to come on tomorrow and break down NFL Week 5, talk about the big-time matchup that I'm excited about, the Packers at the Bengals at Paul Brown Stadium, 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Also, I'm going to talk about some other primetime matchups I'm looking forward to. We got Bills at Chiefs. That's a big-time matchup in the AFC that I'll give you my predictions on. And I'm also going to talk about the Bucs-Patriots game from Sunday night. I didn't get a chance to get into that. I know it's a little late because we're heading into Week 5 now, but I still want to talk about, my takeaways that I had from Tom Brady returning back to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick. So I'll talk about all of that on tomorrow's show. Also, I'm excited because tomorrow night, the Cincinnati Bearcats at 4-0. They're going to be taking on the Temple Owls at Nipper Stadium. So I'll talk about that game as well. Everybody remember, go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I'm Trey Larkin, signing off of the Worldwide Sports Network. Enjoy Thursday Night Football tonight. Have a good night.
And as I mentioned to our wonderful co-host, John from GMF Sports Consultants and Black Hawk West from 151